The signal traveled across vast stretches of the galaxy, bouncing from relay station to relay station. It was coded with the highest priority markers recognized by the Interstellar Council protocols, a desperate plea for help from a world on the brink of extinction. Billions of lives hung in the balance as the message reached the communication hubs of hundreds of advanced civilizations. And yet, as days turned into weeks, the people of Orashi received only silence in return. Riva stood at the observatory window, watching as another section of her home city of Laris collapsed into the widening chasm. The once gleaming metropolis, built over centuries of progress and prosperity, was now crumbling before her eyes. In the distance, the medical domes were overflowing with the sick and injured, victims of the airborne pathogen that had emerged from the planet's geological upheaval. "Any responses?" she asked, not turning from the window. Her father, senior researcher Talon, sighed heavily before answering. "The Turvar Empire acknowledged receipt of our distress signal. They've calculated the resources needed to intervene and—" He paused, his voice breaking slightly, determined that the return on investment would be insufficient. Riva's hands clenched into fists. "And the Serali Confederation? They promised to consider our request." "They've withdrawn their offer of assistance," Talon replied, placing a comforting hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Their council cited unforeseen complications and logistical challenges. In reality, they're afraid of the Turvar's disapproval." The observation deck fell silent as they watched emergency crews rushing toward another building on the verge of collapse. The dual catastrophe, a planet-wide geological instability coupled with an emergent pathogen, had overwhelmed Orash's resources within weeks. What had begun as localized tremors had escalated into continental rifts, releasing ancient microbes from deep within the planet's crust. "The Interstellar Council has officially classified our situation as regrettably terminal," Talon added, his voice hollow. "They've suggested we consider dignified planetary evacuation for a limited population sample, meaning they'll save a few thousand of us as specimens while billions die." Riva spat, turning away from the window at last. At 28 cycles, she had once been considered a rising diplomatic star, educated in the finest institutions across the sector. Now, all her training seemed useless in the face of such calculating indifference. "We've done everything right," she continued, pacing the room. "We joined their council, adopted their regulations, traded our resources fairly, never caused conflict. And this is how they repay us." Talon moved to the communication console, checking the incoming signal log for what must have been the 100th time that day. "The galaxy is vast but cold, daughter. Advanced civilizations calculate everything in terms of cost and benefit. There must be someone," Riva insisted, "someone who values life above profit." The console suddenly chimed, a sound neither had heard in days. Talon's eyes widened as he examined the incoming transmission. "What is it?" Riva asked, rushing to his side. "A response," he whispered, almost afraid to believe it. "From a civilization called Earth." "Earth?" Riva frowned. "I've never heard of them." "They're not full members of the council," Talon explained, scanning the transmission details. "Only observer status. They're relatively new to interstellar travel." "What are they saying?" Talon's expression shifted from surprise to confusion. "They're not offering advice or sending analysis. They're coming. They've already dispatched relief ships with medical personnel and emergency supplies." Riva stared at the console in disbelief. "Why would they help us when the powerful Turvar and Serali wouldn't?" Talon shook his head, equally baffled. "I don't know, but according to this, they'll arrive within 3 days. 3 days, Riva repeated, looking back at the crumbling city. For the first time in weeks, she felt something dangerous stir within her heart. Hope. Who are these humans? She wondered aloud. And what could they possibly do that the advanced civilizations of the galaxy cannot? The vast blackness of space gave way to the swirling atmosphere of Orashi as the Earth Federation vessel Mercy began its descent. Captain Miriam Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the planet's surface come into view with a mixture of determination and apprehension. Atmospheric composition analysis confirms high levels of toxic particulates and pathogen concentration, her science officer reported. Landing protocols will require full containment suits and filtration systems. Miriam nodded, her eyes fixed on the jagged landscape below. Massive fissures scarred the surface, some stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Buildings teetered on the edges of these rifts, while emergency vehicles moved like tiny insects across the broken terrain. "It's worse than the reports suggested," she murmured. "Captain," her communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the Oroshin Planetary Council. They're requesting to speak with the mission commander." "Put them through," Miriam ordered, straightening her uniform. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a group of Oroshin officials. Their iridescent skin, normally a sign of health among their species, appeared dull and ashen. At the center stood an older male, his eyes sunken with exhaustion. "This is Head Counselor Devon of Oroshi," he announced with formal dignity despite his obvious fatigue. "On behalf of our people, I extend gratitude for your response to our distress call." "Captain Miriam Hayes of the Earth Federation," she replied with a respectful bow. "We've come to help in any way we can." The Oroshin officials exchanged glances before Devon spoke again. "Captain Hayes, while we appreciate your willingness to assist, we must ask, why has Earth chosen to intervene? Your civilization is not known to us, and you lack the technological advancement of the major galactic powers." Miriam smiled slightly. "Counselor Devon, on Earth we have a saying, a neighbor in need is a neighbor indeed. Your people are suffering, and we have the capacity to help. That's all the reason we need. But the resources required," another counselor began. "Have already been committed," Miriam finished. "Our ships carry medical personnel, engineers, and emergency supplies. We've studied your situation and developed potential solutions that we believe can help stabilize both the geological instability and the pathogen outbreak." "With respect, Captain," Devon said, "the Turvar Empire, with their quantum engineering capabilities, deemed our situation beyond salvation. How can your less advanced technology succeed where theirs would not?" "Sometimes it's not about having the most advanced technology," Miriam replied calmly. "Sometimes it's about having the will to use what you have. We request permission to land and establish an operations base." After a moment of silent deliberation, Devon nodded. "Permission granted, Captain Hayes. We will prepare a landing zone near the capital city of Laris." "Thank you, Counselor. We'll begin our descent immediately." Hayes out. As the transmission ended, Miriam turned to her crew. "Prepare for landing operations. Full containment protocols in effect. Let's show these people that humanity keeps its promises." The landing zone was a scene of organized chaos as the Earth shuttles touched down amidst swirling dust and debris. Engineering teams immediately began unloading equipment, while medical units established field hospitals. Miriam stepped onto Oroshin soil, the gravity slightly lighter than Earth's, and surveyed the devastated landscape through her containment helmet. "Captain Hayes," a voice called out. She turned to see a young female Oroshin approaching, wearing a makeshift containment suit. "I'm Riva, daughter of senior researcher Talon. I've been assigned as your liaison." "Pleased to meet you, Riva," Miriam said, extending a gloved hand in greeting. The Oroshin hesitated momentarily before taking it. "Your people work quickly," Riva observed, watching as the humans efficiently established their base. "I've never seen such rapid deployment without automated systems." "We've had plenty of practice," Miriam replied. "Natural disasters, pandemics, conflicts. Earth has faced its share of crises. We've learned to adapt." "The Council remains skeptical," Riva admitted as they walked through the bustling camp. "They wonder what Earth hopes to gain from this intervention." Miriam paused, turning to face her. "Look around you, Riva. Your world is in pain. Your people are dying. Where I come from, that's reason enough to act." "The Turvar didn't think so," Riva said bitterly. "Nor did the Serali, or any of the other advanced civilizations we appealed to. Their loss," Miriam replied simply. "Now, I understand your father has been analyzing the geological instability. I'd like to meet with him as soon as possible. As they walked toward the research facility, Rivas studied the human captain. There was something different about these Earth people, a directness, an urgency to their actions that contrasted sharply with the calculated deliberation of the galactic powers. "Captain Hayes," she ventured, "why did humanity hear our cry when no one else would?" Miriam was quiet for a moment before answering. "Perhaps because we still remember what it's like to cry out and not be heard. Earth hasn't always been united or peaceful. We've faced extinction-level threats before, some of our own making. Those experiences taught us that survival often depends on cooperation, not competition." By nightfall, the Earth base was fully operational. Lights blazed against the darkening sky, a beacon of activity in the desolate landscape. As Riva watched the humans work tirelessly to treat the sick and analyze the geological data, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. The situation was dire. Senior researcher Talon's latest readings confirmed what the Earth scientists had suspected. The planet's tectonic instability was accelerating, creating new fissures daily. Each rupture released more of the dormant pathogen into the atmosphere, overwhelming the already strained medical resources. The infection rate has increased by 17% in the Northern Hemisphere. Dr. Alara Shun, the chief medical officer from Earth, reported during the morning briefing. "Our current treatments are slowing the progression, but we need a more aggressive approach to contain it." Miriam nodded, studying the holographic map of Orishi. "And the geological situation?" "Critical," Chief Engineer Rodrigo Martinez answered. "The planet's core is destabilizing due to the rare mineral deposits you've been mining for the past century. The extraction has created pockets of instability that are now collapsing." "Can it be reversed?" Counselor Devon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Reversed?" "No, Martinez replied honestly. But stabilized? Possibly. We're developing a plan to create controlled pressure release points that might prevent catastrophic ruptures." The Tervar engineers said such an approach would be futile. Another counselor objected. "With respect," Martinez said, "the Tervar weren't willing to try. We are." As the meeting continued, Riva noticed Miriam constantly adapting plans based on new information, consulting with her team, and incorporating Orishan knowledge. There was no rigid hierarchy, no dismissal of alternative perspectives. It was unlike any crisis response she had witnessed in the Interstellar Council. After the briefing, Riva found Miriam studying geological samples in a makeshift laboratory. "The Council is impressed with your progress," Riva said, "but concerned about your limited resources. The Interstellar Council has imposed restrictions on technology transfers to Earth." Miriam looked up from her work. "We noticed several of our supply ships were denied passage through regulated space. Apparently, helping Orishi without authorization is disruptive to established protocols. They don't want you to succeed," Riva realized. "If you do, it challenges their authority, their judgment that Orishi wasn't worth saving." "Politics," Miriam sighed. "Some things are universal, it seems. How will you proceed without additional supplies?" Riva asked. "We'll use what we have more efficiently," Miriam replied, "and we'll improvise with local resources. Your people have skills and knowledge that we lack. Together, we might find solutions that neither of us would discover alone." That afternoon, Miriam organized joint teams of humans and Orishans to address the dual crises. Medical personnel began training local healers in Earth techniques that required minimal technology. Engineers worked with Orishan builders to construct reinforcements for critical infrastructure using indigenous materials. As days passed, a rhythm developed. Small victories emerged. A new treatment protocol reduced infection rates in one region. A reinforcement technique prevented a major building collapse. A filtration system improved air quality in the overcrowded shelters. But for every step forward, there were setbacks. A major fissure opened beneath a residential area, claiming hundreds of lives. A mutation in the pathogen rendered one of the treatments ineffective. And always, there was the looming knowledge that the core instability continued to worsen. We're buying time, not solving the problem, Miriam admitted to Riva one evening as they shared a meal in the command tent. We need something more substantial, a way to address the root cause. The Turvar could do it, Riva said quietly. They have stabilization technology that could reinforce the planetary core. But they blocked all our requests for assistance. Why? Miriam asked. What do they gain from Orash destruction? Riva hesitated before answering. Resources. If Orashi becomes uninhabitable, the Turvar can claim mining rights under the Abandoned Worlds Protocol. Our misfortune becomes their opportunity. Miriam's expression hardened. That's why they've been restricting our supply lines. They're not just indifferent to your survival. They're actively hindering it. And they're not alone, Riva added. Several council members stand to benefit if Orashi falls. They see your intervention as inconvenient. Miriam was silent for a long moment, her mind racing. Finally, she looked up with renewed determination. Then we'll have to be more than inconvenient. We'll have to be impossible to ignore. That night, Miriam sent an encrypted message to Earth, requesting an extraordinary measure that would either save Orashi or permanently alter humanity's standing in the galactic community. The response came 3 days later. Proceed with full authority. Earth stand with Orashi. The breaking point came without warning. A massive tremor shook the capital city of Laris, collapsing the central medical facility and rupturing the main atmospheric filtration system. Toxic gases poured into the city center as thousands fled in panic. Status report, Miriam demanded, rushing into the command center as alarms blared. Multiple structural failures across the city, Martinez reported grimly. The northeastern quadrant is completely cut off by a new fissure. Atmospheric contamination levels are rising exponentially. Casualties? Miriam asked, dreading the answer. Unknown, but significant, Dr. Shin replied, her voice tight with strain. Our medical teams are overwhelmed. We're losing people faster than we can treat them. Counselor Devon entered, his face ashen. Captain Hayes, the Planetary Council is convening an emergency session. Your presence is requested. The council chamber was in disarray when Miriam arrived. Arguments erupted between factions as the crisis deepened. At the center of the discord stood Senior Senator Crail, his voice rising above the others. This catastrophe proves what I have said from the beginning, he declared. The humans lack the technological capability to save Orashi. We must appeal again to the Turvar Empire. The Turvar have rejected our appeals 7 times, Talon countered, while Captain Hayes and her team have worked tirelessly to help us. With limited success, Crail shot back. Look around you. Our world is collapsing despite their efforts. Miriam stepped forward. Senator Crail, with respect, what would the Turvar have accomplished by now? They chose not to help at all, because they recognized the futility. Crail insisted. They wisely conserved resources that would be wasted on a doomed world. Or perhaps, Riva interjected, rising from her seat, they calculated that Orash destruction would benefit them. Have you considered, Senator, why you've been receiving private communications from Turvar representatives throughout this crisis? A hush fell over the chamber as all eyes turned to Crail. That's a slanderous accusation, he sputtered. Is it? Riva challenged. Then you won't mind if we review the communication logs? Crail's silence was damning. Counselors, Miriam said, seizing the moment, I have a proposal that could stabilize the planetary core and neutralize the pathogen simultaneously. But it requires a decision, now. She outlined the plan, using the Earth's ship's core reactors to generate a controlled energy pulse that would seal the major fissures and sterilize the released pathogens. The technical details were complex, but the risk was clear. The ships would be permanently grounded, stranding the Earth personnel on Orashi. You would sacrifice your only means of returning home? Head Counselor Devon asked, astonished. To save billions of lives? Yes, Miriam answered without hesitation. My crew has unanimously agreed. This is madness, Crail objected. Even if this works, you'd be violating dozens of interstellar regulations. The Council would impose sanctions on both Orochi and Earth. Perhaps, Miriam acknowledged. But we'd all be alive to face those consequences. The debate raged for hours as the crisis worsened outside. Finally, Head Counselor Devon called for a vote. The result was narrow but clear. They would proceed with the Earth plan. As the Council disbanded, Riva caught up with Miriam in the corridor. The engineering team is ready, but there's a problem. Someone needs to manually activate the pulse from the primary fissure site, an extremely hazardous location. The radiation exposure would be significant. I understand, Miriam said quietly. I'll do it myself. No, Riva insisted. You needed to coordinate the overall operation. I'll go. Absolutely not, Miriam countered. This is our mission, our responsibility. In my world, Riva said firmly. My people, my right to risk everything for them. Their argument was interrupted by Talon. Neither of you will go, he said, his voice calm but resolute. I've spent my life studying Orash geology. I know the fissure systems better than anyone. And he added with a sad smile, I've already been exposed to dangerous levels of radiation during my research. The additional exposure won't significantly shorten what time I have left. Despite their protests, Talon's logic was irrefutable. As preparations for the Pulse operation began, Miriam and Riva worked side by side, coordinating teams across the planet. Earth ships positioned themselves at strategic points, preparing to channel their core energy into Orash's unstable crust. Tell me about Earth, Talon requested as Miriam helped him into the specialized suit he would wear. Into the fissure. Is it beautiful? Very, she replied, checking the suit's seals. We have vast oceans, mountains that reach the clouds, forests that stretch for thousands of kilometers. I wish I could have seen it, he said wistfully. When this is over, Miriam promised, we'll establish a permanent link between our worlds. The first of many cultural exchanges. Talon smiled. I would like that. The final preparations moved quickly. Evacuation orders cleared the areas around the major fissures. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Engineers made final adjustments to the pulse generators. As the moment approached, Miriam stood with Riva at the command center, watching the holographic display of Orash surface. Whatever happens, Miriam said softly, it has been an honor to work with you and your people. The honor has been ours, Riva replied, emotion thick in her voice. You heard our cry when the galaxy turned away. That alone would have been enough. The countdown began. Talon's voice came through the communication system, steady despite the danger. In position. Initiating primary sequence. All ships report ready, Martinez confirmed. Medical teams standing by, Dr. Shin added. Miriam took a deep breath. Commence energy transfer on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The lights in the command center dimmed as power was diverted to the pulse generators. On the holographic display, bright lines of energy connected the Earth's ships to the planet's surface, converging at the primary fissure where Talon waited. Energy levels at 60%, Martinez reported. 70, 80. Structural integrity of the fissure is holding, another engineer called out. 90%. Maximum capacity reached. Pulse ready. Talon, Miriam said into the communicator, activate when ready. There was a moment of silence. Then Talon's voice, calm and clear, for Orochi, for Earth, for a galaxy that might learn from this day. He activated the pulse. The command center shook violently as energy surged through the planet's crust. The holographic display became a chaos of light and data as the pulse propagated through the fissure network. Alarms blared, equipment crashed to the floor, and for one terrible moment, it seemed the plan had failed catastrophically. Then gradually the tremors subsided. The display stabilized, showing the energy pulse moving in a controlled wave through the planet's geological fault lines. It's working, Martinez exclaimed. The fissures are sealing. Atmospheric contamination levels dropping, another technician reported. The pulse is neutralizing the pathogen. Riva clutched Miriam's arm. Am I father? Miriam tried the communicator. Talon? Talon, do you read me? The silence that answered was deafening. The aftermath of the pulse was both miraculous and sobering. Across Orishi, the major fissures had sealed themselves, the planet's crust stabilizing for the first time in months. The atmospheric pathogen levels had dropped to manageable levels, allowing the medical teams to finally gain the upper hand in treating the infected. But the cost had been high. Whole districts of Laris lay in ruins. Thousands had perished in the final tremors before stabilization. And the rescue team that reached the primary fissure site found Talon's communication equipment destroyed, with no sign of the man himself. 3 days after the pulse, Miriam stood at the observation window where she had first met Riva, watching as Orishin and human crews worked together to clear debris and rebuild. The Council has voted unanimously to establish a permanent alliance with Earth, Riva announced, joining her at the window. Senator Krail has been removed from office and placed under investigation for collusion with foreign powers. And the Interstellar Council? Miriam asked. They've sent a delegation, Riva replied with a hint of satisfaction. Apparently, our survival has created what they're calling an unprecedented diplomatic situation. Miriam smiled slightly. I imagine they're not pleased. They're not, Riva confirmed. But they're also not in a position to object too strenuously. Public opinion across several worlds has shifted. Many are questioning why their governments refuse to help us. Sometimes it takes one act of courage to change the conversation, Miriam observed. Riva nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The search teams are still looking for my father. I haven't given up hope. Miriam placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Nor should you. If there's one thing this crisis has taught us, it's that hope is sometimes all we have, and often all we need to begin. The next morning brought unexpected news. An Orishin patrol in a remote area had found a man wandering, disoriented but alive, Talon. He had been thrown clear of the fissure by the pulse's force, his suit damaged but functional enough to keep him alive until he could reach the surface. The reunion between father and daughter was tearful and joyous. Though weakened by radiation exposure and dehydration, Talon would recover. One more miracle in a time of many. As news of the successful stabilization spread throughout the galaxy, ships began arriving from worlds that had previously ignored Orash's plight. Some came with genuine offers of aid, others with transparent attempts to establish influence now that the planet had survived. Vultures, Riva commented as she and Miriam watched a Turvar diplomatic vessel land. They ignored our distress calls for months, and now they come bearing gifts. It's not surprising, Miriam replied. Success changes how people see you. Suddenly, you're worth investing in. We won't forget who was there when it mattered, Riva assured her. The alliance with Earth will be Orash's priority. The Interstellar Council's delegation arrived with great ceremony, but little warmth. Led by High Commissioner Graveler, a being of considerable age and dignity, they requested an immediate audience with both Orishin and Earth representatives. The Council has reviewed the events leading to Orash's stabilization, Graveler announced in the formal meeting. While we acknowledge the positive outcome, we must express concern about the methods employed. Earth's intervention, while well-intentioned, bypassed established protocols for interplanetary crisis management. Protocols that failed us, Head Counselor Devon pointed out. When we followed your procedures exactly, we were abandoned to die. Regrettable miscalculations were made, Graveler conceded. However, the unauthorized use of reactor technology for planetary engineering sets a troubling precedent. With respect, High Commissioner, Miriam interjected, when the choice is between protocol and saving billions of lives, humanity will choose life every time. A noble sentiment, Graveler replied, but one that could lead to chaos if universally applied, or one that could remind us all why we established the Interstellar Council in the first place, Riva suggested. Was it not to protect and preserve life throughout the galaxy? The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Council could not undo what had been done, nor could they justify sanctions against worlds that had survived against impossible odds. In the end, they formally recognized the Earth-Orash alliance and granted Earth advanced membership status, an unprecedented promotion that sent ripples through galactic politics. As the days passed, a new normal began to emerge. Earth engineers worked alongside Orishan builders to reconstruct cities with improved designs. Medical teams developed treatments for the lingering effects of the pathogen. Cultural exchanges flourished as humans and Orishans shared knowledge, art, and traditions. 6 weeks after the pulse, Miriam received the news she had been dreading. Earth had finally managed to send replacement parts for one of the damaged ships. Soon, she and her crew would be able to return home. "You could stay," Riva suggested as they walked through a newly replanted park in Laris. "Many of your people have decided to remain on Orishi." "Earth needs to hear what happened here firsthand," Miriam replied. "This experience has changed how we see our place in the galaxy. We need to prepare for a more active role." "You already have that role," Riva said. "When we begged the galaxy for help, only humanity heard our cry. That means something, not just to Orishi, but to countless worlds that might one day face their own crises." Miriam nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's humanity's contribution to the interstellar community, not advanced technology or ancient wisdom, but simply the willingness to help, even when there's no obvious benefit. That willingness saved our world," Riva reminded her. "Never doubt its value." On the day of departure, a ceremony was held to honor the Earth mission. Thousands of Orishans gathered to witness the formal establishment of the Alliance. Talon, still recovering but determined to attend, presented Miriam with a crystal containing a complete genetic and cultural archive of Orishi. "So that no matter what happens," he explained, "our peoples will always remain connected." As Miriam prepared to board her ship, Riva embraced her one last time. "This isn't goodbye," she insisted. "It's the beginning of something new, something better than either of us could have imagined." "A friendship that spans the stars," Miriam agreed. From the bridge of her departing vessel, Miriam watched Orishi grow smaller in the view screen. The planet still bore scars from its ordeal, but now those scars were healing. New growth covered the sealed fissures. Rebuilt cities gleamed in the sunlight. And on the night side, lights twinkled, signs of life and hope where despair had once reigned. "Set course for Earth," she ordered, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. "We have quite a story to tell." As the ship accelerated into the vastness of space, Miriam reflected on everything that had happened. In a galaxy of advanced civilizations and incredible technologies, it had been humanity, young, imperfect, still finding its way among the stars, that had answered when a world cried out for help. Not because it was profitable or politically advantageous, but because it was right. And in that simple truth lay humanity's greatest strength, a strength the rest of the galaxy was only now beginning to understand.